Alright, we're in the mesocosms right now. We just got finished cleaning these tanks, just emptying them and rinsing them. I could show that, but I kind of already did it, and also it's a little bit tedious, boring. We just take that little exo pipe out, it all drains, and we push the mud through into the drain, we put it back in, and that's kind of it. I did that with all of these tanks, except the controls, I believe, which we already did yesterday. We just finished rinsing out this tank. It had not been rinsed in a very long time. And now we're about to feed these guys, which I will show. But also from that tank, look at the crabs that we pulled out that aren't supposed to be there. I'm gonna keep these little guys. All right, so we gotta feed these guys Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week. We have these oysters with the dock, we crush them, and then we just kind of throw them in. And we do that for every single one of them. Not much else to it. We check if they're alive or dead. And once we feed them, we close the cages so we don't forget that we fed them. And that's about it. Stay out of the camera, Al. Alright, so right now we are remarking tiles that were previously in cages. Because each of these has been given a different primer previously. Some of these get black, some of these get little blue dots, and some of them get nothing at all. But with about 26 cages total, we have to remark all of them in because the previous markings washed off. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I am cutting out these little square pieces of flashing metal to cover one half of each of these cages, which we're taking the tops off of. So when we put these out, each cage will be half covered. This side will be controlled, this side will be the experimental side, or the flashing experiment. And you can cut it there. So now that I have all of my flashing covered cages made, I've gone ahead and made two where we have some tiles tied down on the inside. See the underside here, we have 4 zip ties on them. There's nothing actually on these tiles because we have 3 different materials that we are testing to see whether or not they dissolve in the water. We're gonna put these out overnight, just like that. And that'll go down there and stay for, say, about 12 hours. And I'll go check it, and we'll see how that works. One thing we do often here, one day, Wednesday, Friday usually, that I can't quite show off to the extent I like to, is we pull up crab traps and pull up oyster traps, or oyster cages. They're not really traps because, well, the oysters were already in there. So here's one of our cages. Right now I am preparing and sorting these oyster tiles. We'll place 80 on a platform up in the cages. I take the shells off the dead ones, count the ones that are alive, put them on here. One thing I just found that's pretty cool is this little flatworm is eating an oyster. He's still alive, but he's a little sluggish. One more thing you find in these oyster shells quite often are these little worms. They are angry. They've been biting at me. Now that the glue is dry and we have all the platforms inside these cages, we're putting them in holding until Monday, at which point we'll put them out at lightning point. Alright, we're out at lightning point right now. We've got 22 oyster cages out here. We're going to put them out in the reef out there. Total, we have about maybe 3,000 to 4,000 oysters in these on, I want to say, about 300 tiles. You see, we got these flashing sheets over half of them. That's because we're going to be checking whether shade has anything to do with their mortality rate in the wild. You can also see that each of these cages either has no covers on each end, or they have some covers. That's because it's also possible that it could just be predation causing the mortality that we think could also be caused by temperature. For some background, how we discovered this is when we went out there on the reef, the first 2 layers of oysters were dead, but underneath those first 2 layers on the surface, there were some live oysters underneath. That could point to potentially one of 2 things. One, the top layer of oysters prevents the predators from reaching the bottom layer, or 2, that they block high temperature from reaching the lower layer of oysters.